Welcome to this explainer. Have you ever stopped to think about the real difference between being incredibly rich and being unimaginably world-altering wealthy? Let's just picture it for a second. A giant pile of $100 million sitting right next to an absolute towering mountain of $100 billion. Today, we're breaking down that mind-boggling gap between two very different tiers of the ultra-wealthy. We're going to look at how their money works and how they ultimately shape the world we live in. We so often group anyone with a massive fortune into the exact same category. But as you'll see, the reality, the lifestyle, and the sheer power held by these two groups are completely different worlds. To really set the stage here, let's compare $100 million, which is roughly 800 crore rupees, against $100 billion, an astonishing 8 lakh crore rupees. I mean, both of these numbers sound impossibly huge to the average person, right? But that exponential leap in scale isn't just about adding a few extra zeros to a bank account. It represents a total, fundamental shift in reality.
Okay, let's dive into this. What is the actual day-to-day difference between someone in the $100 million club and a mega billionaire? How does that massive mathematical gap translate into their lifestyle, their daily choices, and their overall influence? Well, to really understand this, we need to look at exactly where their money comes from, how they avoid losing it, and what they're actually doing with it on a daily basis.
First up, let's look at the $100 million lifestyle, the millionaire world. Typically, an individual at this level has built a wildly successful company over years of hard work and then sold it off to a larger corporation. They've reached a level of success most people only dream about. But here's the thing. Their fortune doesn't just sit as cash in a regular checking account. It's almost entirely tied up in the stock market, which historically grows by about 10% every single year. But they face this really fascinating dilemma. To live their luxurious, high-end lives, they obviously need cash, yet they don't actually sell their shares to get it. And this builds into what we can call the untaxed cash strategy. Think about it. If they were to simply sell their shares to buy a luxury house or car, they'd be hit with a massive tax bill, roughly 37% in many cases. So to avoid that heavy taxation, they use a perfectly legal financial maneuver. They keep their wealth securely locked in stocks, and they pledge those exact shares to a bank as collateral for a massive low-interest loan. Because loans aren't classified as income, they get millions in cash to spend completely tax-free, all while their portfolio just continues to grow at that 10% rate. Pretty clever, right? So what do they actually do with all that untaxed cash? Well, they're enjoying stunning penthouses in places like New York or Miami, they're dropping millions for VIP access at Formula One races, and they are living at the absolute peak of consumer luxury. But here is the absolute key takeaway. Even with 800 crore rupees, when it comes to the ultimate status symbols like sleek private jets or massive yachts, they are typically still renting them for their trips. They absolutely enjoy the luxury for sure, but they don't own the infrastructure of that luxury. Now, multiply that entire world by 100. Welcome to the $100 billion reality, the mega billionaires. And this brilliantly illustrates how the rules of reality fundamentally change at this tier. While the $100 million earner rents a jet for a weekend getaway, the mega billionaire outright owns fleets of private jets. They aren't renting a yacht. They own colossal superyachts that require an 80-person staff working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, literally just to keep the vessel operational. The maintenance alone costs crores of rupees every single year. It's the difference between buying a first-class ticket and owning the entire airline. But here's what's wild. At the $100 billion level, the primary desire shifts entirely away from just buying flashy items. The ultimate luxury actually becomes absolute privacy and total disaster preparedness. They invest in futuristic, ultra-luxury underground doomsday bunkers. They buy massive private islands just to isolate themselves from the rest of the world. And they keep dedicated, world-class personal doctors and pilots on their private payrolls 24/7. The goal isn't just to enjoy the world anymore, it's to be completely insulated from its problems. Which brings us to the most significant divide of all. Power bought with money, systemic influence. So the crucial point is, when we look at political action completely neutrally, the structural differences are just massive. A $100 million individual might donate lakhs of dollars to a political party, That's standard political support, right? It might secure a seat at an exclusive dinner or a nice photo opportunity. But the $100 billion individual operates on a totally different frequency. They invest crores of rupees with the capacity to heavily influence or even help form governments. Their ultimate impact isn't just supporting a candidate. It's structurally shaping and directly changing laws to benefit their vast business empires. They completely bypass standard donations to shape the very rules of the game. What we really have to understand here is that this compounding of power and influence isn't some glitch in the matrix. It is exactly the capitalistic design. In a heavily capitalized system, wealth automatically generates more wealth. The legal tax strategies, the political influence, the sheer unstoppable momentum of billions of dollars. It operates exactly as it is structurally designed to operate for those holding massive assets. The wealth insulates itself, it protects itself, and it inevitably expands. Which leaves us with a profound question. When such an extreme concentration of wealth and absolute power rests in the hands of just a few individuals, does it inevitably lead to frustration and inequality? It's a pretty natural reaction when the scales are tipped this dramatically. We've explored the math, the untaxed strategies, the incredible yachts, and the systemic power. So what do you think about this grand divide? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning the systems around you.